Assalamu alaikum. There we go. Is Ali still here or is he gone? I'm just going to stand here for a second and feel the love.
Love you, Susan.
Thank you, darling. I love you too. When I came to the UAE 18 years ago, I lived in Abu Dhabi. Now, I think you probably know Abu Dhabi. It's that little emirate on the end of Sheikh Zayed Road. Maybe you've even been there before. And one of the small pleasures that I had when I first came here was to watch the sailing dhows coming into the harbor in the late afternoon, and it brought me great joy. And as I was preparing this talk, that same vision of those racing dhows, those sailing dhows, kept coming in my mind, and I didn't know why. I think it's somehow connected to Hans, now that I think of it. I didn't know he was going to also talk about sailing. But it occurred to me then, as I kept having the vision of these sailboats, that there was a reason behind this talk. And the reason is up here on the slide in Arabic. Now, haram, I have not learned Arabic in all those years that I've been here, so I need your help. All of you who speak Arabic and can read Arabic, on the count of 3, please read in Arabic what it says at the top of the slide. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And the translation would be? We're all in the same boat. I'm a feminist, and that means I see the world often through the lens of gender, through the filter of gender. And what I've discovered through that filter over the years is that we're all in the same boat. All races, all religions, all nationalities, and most importantly, both genders are in the same boat. And that's what I want to talk about today. Unfortunately, in that boat, that human race boat that we're in right now, we're facing a lot of stormy seas. We've got political problems. We've got economic problems. We've got environmental issues. We've got all kinds of societal strife. And as we're sailing in these stormy seas, in this big boat of humanity, we've also got a lot of imbalance. We've got haves and have-nots. We've got rich. We've got poor. We've got people who are more able-bodied and people who are not. And we have an imbalance with respect to gender as well. So again, I'm going to focus on that. And by the time I'm finished my talk, I hope that all of you will shift your perspective a little bit with respect to the role that we play as men and women in the world today. So I want to talk about, by the way, before I want to make one thing crystal clear. My brand of feminism has nothing to do with male bashing. I like men. In fact, I love men. I was married to one for 20 years, and it was awesome.
And then what happened?
Yeah, well, you know, it didn't work out in the end, but that's okay. So I have nothing against men. I have nothing against men. That's not what this is about. This is about creating a world in which both women and men contribute equally in a meaningful way so that we can sail that boat forward through these stormy seas. I want to talk about 4 things. What this gender imbalance looks like when we're in the world today, what it looks like, what the root cause of it is, how the results that are coming from that, how we can shift it, and I'll take hopefully only 18 minutes to do all of that. So when I'm looking out at you, the audience, this is what I see. I see, well, Abdullah's over there. He's not actually out there, but that's him and Ragda. I see an audience that is mostly, you know, it's balanced. It's balanced. We've got about 50% men and 50% women. Now, in my view, that balance should be reflected in our institutions, in our government, in our education system, in our media, in our entertainment. We should see that 50% balance. It's about 50. Some people say it's 51-49, but you know, give or take a percentage or two. So what does it actually look like? Well, It doesn't look like this at all. This is what the world governments look like. We have 193 countries in the world, and only 13 of them are led by women. 7%. It's not enough. Now, we all know this guy. He's looking familiar. This woman up here in the 7% slot, I was so glad when Ali talked about gorillas, because this woman was recently sworn in as the president of Brazil in January this year, 2011. And in fact, she used to be a guerrilla fighter. What a coincidence. Not one of those hairy gorillas, one of the fighters that Ali was talking about. So that's governments. What about media? Well, the world media, they're a little better in terms of the balance, but 75% men? Maybe you've seen this guy. This guy's on Hard Talk. His name is Tim Sebastian. And this woman you're probably familiar with. Her name is Christiane Amanpour. But think about when you open the newspaper in the morning, or when you go online and you read, you're taking a look at who's making the news. Well, who is making the news? Mostly men are making the news. And what are the stories about? The stories are about, guess who? Mostly men. We've got some imbalance. Even when we look at the TED stages around the world, 75% of the speakers are men. Only 25% are women. There's an imbalance there. Now, this guy's awesome. This guy's name is Hans Rosling. If you're wanting to know how to do visual aids, this is your man. He's the king of visual aids. Watch his TED Talks. This woman is Jacqueline Novogratz, and she's started a fund called the Acumen Fund that is absolutely awesome, helping people around the world develop entrepreneurial businesses, and mostly in poor countries. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got all this imbalance. What is the cause? Basically, when it comes down to it, it's that we all undervalue women. Men undervalue women, and women ourselves undervalue ourselves. It's a bit of an issue. So I brought along a couple of experts to speak to this point in particular. This fellow, Tony Porter, is an educator and an activist and a male feminist. Yes, there are some. And he spoke at TED Women in DC in December, and this is what he had to say.
So I grew up in New York City, between Harlem and the Bronx. Growing up as a boy, we was taught that men had to be tough, had to be strong, had to be courageous, dominating, no pain, no emotions, with the exception of anger and definitely no fear. That men are in charge, which means women are not. That men lead, and you should just follow and just do what we say. That men are superior, women are inferior. That men are strong, women are weak. That women are of less value, property of men and objects.
This is, again, I want to tell you, this is not an anti-men thing. Where do men learn not to value women? From their parents, from educators, from society in general. So really, we don't need men to shift their ideas. We don't need women to shift their ideas. We need a whole big, massive, global mind shift to change the way that we perceive women. So this is one man's viewpoint. I want to share with you now a woman's view. And this is Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO of Facebook, Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. And she tells a story, again at TED Women Conference, about how she and a friend of hers and her brother were all taking a philosophy course. And the two women studied like mad. They read all the books, they went to all the classes, and the brother, meanwhile, he was busy doing other things. He read one of the books. He attended half the classes. And then the night before the exam, he went to the young women's room to get tutored. How many of you are students? Any students? Okay, so you know all about this, right? The night before the exam, you cram everything in. You try to learn everything in one night. That's what happened. And
We walk out and we look at each other and we say, how'd you do? And Carrie says, boy, I feel like I didn't really draw out the main point on the Hegelian dialectic. And I say, God, I really wish I had really connected John Locke's theory of property, the philosophers that follow. And my brother says, I got the top grade in the class. You got the top grade in the class? You don't know anything. The problem with these stories is that they show what the data shows. Women systematically underestimate their own abilities. If you test men and women and you ask them questions on totally objective criteria like GPAs, men get it wrong slightly high and women get it wrong slightly low. Women do not negotiate for themselves in the workforce. A study in the last 2 years of people entering the workforce out of college showed that 57% of boys entering, or men I guess, are negotiating their first salary, and only 7% of women. And most importantly, men attribute their success to themselves and women attribute it to other external factors. If you ask men why they did a good job, they'll say, I'm awesome. If you ask, obviously, why are you even asking? If you ask women why they did a good job, what they'll say is someone helped them, they got lucky, they worked really hard.
okay, so we've got this imbalance. The root cause, in my view, of the imbalance is that men undervalue women and women undervalue women. What is the result of this? Well, I want to give you 2 examples. I'll go back here. I'll give you 2 examples, one on a societal level and one on an individual level. On the societal level, the example I want to use is India. Maybe a couple of decades ago, technology became available that would allow people to determine the sex of their child, their unborn child. And what's happened since then is that many unborn girl children have been aborted. Their pregnancies terminated. So that in India, the number of children between the age of 0 and 6 years old has gone down, per 1,000 male children, has gone down to 915. So for every 1,000 boy children, there are only 915 girls. This is what the graph looks like. And the situation is similar in China. I just read a report yesterday that said that there are 32 million Chinese men, boys under the age of 20, that have no matching girls. So there are 32 million more boys under the age of 20 than there are girls. Now, if we have this, if this continues, we're going to have big problems. And in case you think this imbalance doesn't affect you, it does, because we're all interconnected. We've seen what happened with the recession the last few years. You have a tsunami in Japan. It affects all of us. So this kind of imbalance is dangerous. It's not something that we should be paying attention to and making change around. So the next story I want to share you is on an individual level. Sheryl Sandberg talked about the fact that women undervalue and underestimate their own abilities. This example I want to use is from a coaching session I did last week. I helped the speakers at TEDx Ramallah prepare for their presentations. And I coached one woman who is a full-time activist. And she was, in talking about what she was going to speak about, we were discussing what she does. She told me about a video. She said, I've done this video, and it was a Korean guy captured me on film as I was doing a protest, and it was really, it's nothing special, it's not out of the ordinary. She said she just happened to mention that it also got 2 million views on YouTube. I said, 2 million views? Must be something to this video. Here's the video.
그런데 이때 한 팔레스타인 처녀가 총구를 막아섰다.
Kids, don't you understand that?
Vamos, Dios cuando vamos.
You're shooting at kids.
No.
그녀는 당황했다.
Why are you shooting at them? Why are you shooting at them?
맨몸으로라도 이스라엘 군의 총격을 막겠다는 후에이다의 결의. 그리고 잠시 후 몸을 던진 필사적인 노력으로 작은 평화를 얻기도 쉽지 않다. 이것이 이 땅의 냉정한 현실이다.
How many of you think that was brave? Yeah. She thinks nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, because there's a huge disconnect. And I see this all the time. This is an extreme case and a blatant case. But believe me, I run into women all the time who don't measure their own value in the way that we should be doing it. Okay, so we know that there's an imbalance. We know the root. These are the results. What to do about it? I think that there are three things. Here's what we're trying to achieve, 50-50% balance. Here's where we are. We've got the government imbalance, we've got the media imbalance, we've got the TED stages imbalance. By the way, how many, do you think, all of you, that women have just as many ideas we're spreading as men do? Put your hand up if you think that. More ideas! Okay, so if you all think that women have just as many good ideas, then why aren't there just as many women as men up here on the stage? So what do? The solutions are, number one, awareness. And I hope that this talk has maybe given you a bit of a different view of, that you see the world from maybe a little bit from a feminist point of view. And that it shifted your mind just a little bit. The kinds of solutions that we need, so awareness is one. Number two, we need to take action. When you see an imbalance, try to make change around it. And what that means is having young women like the ones that are going to be presenting this afternoon up on TED stages. They're sitting right here, and their talks are going to be absolutely awesome. We need women role models like this one, who went to Elham Al-Qasimi, as you know, who was the first Emirati woman, first Arab woman to go to the North Pole. I posted her story on my website, and I got feedback from young girls, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, saying things like, you know, I have a dream, I want to go to space. I want to be an astronaut. And I didn't think that I could do it. But now I know that I can, because I saw Elham, what she's done. And they're going to see what these young women have done. We need more women role models on the stage. And the reason why we need them is because we're all in the boat together. And if we're not all contributing, we won't be able to navigate these stormy seas. You know, even I'm not saying this. Noah, the guy who built the ark, the man who built the ark, he brought the animals on 2 by 2. He just didn't have the male animals come on the ark. No, 2 by 2 they came. Men, women, we have to work together. And if we don't address this gender imbalance, in my view, we're going to miss the boat entirely. Thank you.